Hello and welcome to Round Robin. I'm your host, Robin McCormick with the City of Hampton, and today we're going to bring you some information about a very serious issue. Nationally, homicide is the leading cause of death for Black males between the ages of 15 and 24. It's responsible for more deaths of Black males in this age group than the 9 other leading causes combined. In Hampton, Black males make up 80% of the young people charged with crimes. It's time to change the narrative for Black males from failure to hope. In fact, that was the title of a symposium that the City of Hampton hosted in February 2016 for the Hampton Roads region's 7 cities. The day-long focus on programs and initiatives that are making a difference throughout the country offered concrete ideas for Hampton and other localities. As a region, we want to communicate, coordinate, and take action. Teams of elected officials, staff, police chief, judges, nonprofit directors, and faith leaders listened to speakers, including Governor Terry McAuliffe, Mayor George Wallace, Vice Mayor Linda Curtis, Casey Family Program CEO William Bell, Cities United Director Anthony Smith, and others. Much of the information was technical, details about how some programs work or what kind of funding options exist. But broader information was presented about the crisis and about what can be done and what is being done. We're bringing those highlights to you today.
Being mayor of this great city of Hampton is one of the best jobs you can have other than being the governor. And that job, or this job, has afforded me many, many great opportunities, and I'm about to manifest one in a few seconds. This morning, I have the privilege of introducing His Excellency. The governor of the Commonwealth of Virginia is Terry McAuliffe, and he needs no introduction. Since taking office, Governor McAuliffe has worked tirelessly to move the Commonwealth forward for all Virginians. Many of the governor's initiatives, including building a new Virginia economy in which everybody has access to a great education and a great paying job, will aid in advancing the issues that we are attempting to address today. In addition, he's demonstrated leadership in transportation funding reform and achieving his goal to functionally eliminate veterans' homelessness in Virginia. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my distinct pleasure and honor to present to you the Governor of the Commonwealth of Virginia, Terry McAuliffe.
You know, I travel all over the Commonwealth, and when a mayor introduces me, I always like to say, clearly the greatest mayor in the United States of America. I got a whole table of mayors here, so let's give a round of applause to all the mayors here, the greatest mayors in the United States of America. And it's an honor to be with you today, and when I always see the presentation, the colors, you know, we think about Virginia. You know, we have 800,000 veterans here in the Commonwealth of Virginia. We have more veterans per capita than any state in America, more female veterans than any state in America, more veterans under the age of 25 than any state in America. You know, that's a great honor and also a great responsibility. It's not for today's talk, but I would remind you that on Veterans Day, I stood at our war memorial, and Virginia became the first and the only state certified by the federal government to have functionally ended veteran homelessness in our state. That's a great honor for Virginia. But here we're talking about the great, and I thank you all coming together for this great conference. As you all know, for far too many years, our African-American men have been without a voice, not only here in Virginia, but throughout the country. And that's what we're going to talk about today. What do we do here in Virginia to make ourselves a model to making sure everybody has that opportunity to be successful? We're here to acknowledge the distinct economic, social, and political barriers that affect them through a disproportionate levels of poverty, voter suppression, and a lack of access to educational opportunities. And that's what I talk about every single day as governor of the Commonwealth. We've got to get rid of these barriers. We've got to give everybody an opportunity to grow here in the Commonwealth of Virginia. You all hear me talk every day about building the new Virginia economy. We got to become less reliant on the federal government so that we can provide opportunities for everyone. As you probably know, we have had tremendous success. I just announced the other day a 4.2% unemployment. We now have the lowest unemployment rate of any state in the entire southeast United States of America. I just announced 3,856,100 Virginians are working, more than any time in our history. Our initial unemployment claims, I just announced, were a 41-year low. Our economy is picking up steam. We are diversifying our economy. I've announced, yesterday I did my 600th economic development project. We're at $9.9 billion of new capital since I became governor. Not that we're counting, nearly double any governor in the history of the Commonwealth of Virginia. Just want you to know that. So that we know the jobs are here. But the key for me is to make sure our children are getting that education, that skill set, so that when they come out of school, they got skills to go right into those jobs. Right now, today in Virginia, I have 30,000 technology jobs open. Right today, I have 17,000 cybersecurity jobs open. Starting pay, $88,000. Within a couple of years, within 3 years, you're up to about $120,000 a year. These are great, high-paying jobs. But right now, we don't have the skill set to fill those jobs. So that's why I'm concerned as governor, because most importantly, if we do not do that, these businesses will go to other states. So this is a perfect conference for me today to pull it all together, to talk about what we need to do. So I focus on education. I'll talk about that in a few minutes. I talk about giving everybody second chances, giving everybody opportunities. I know that Secretary Moran and Secretary Stoney will be here this afternoon. We've just had another landmark. I've just gone over 16,000, those individuals who have committed a felony but have now been out and served their time and have done their probation or parole. I have now restored the rights of 16,000 to give them their voting and civil rights back. That is more, as you know, than any governor's done before in a 4-year term, and I'm just getting warmed up. I'm a huge believer giving people second opportunities. Once you've served your time, don't you want them feeling good about themselves, getting back in society, getting a job? Well, how can you do that if you're not even letting folks even vote again? So we really are leading an effort. I talked about this at my State of the Commonwealth. I had an individual in the audience who I just restored his rights. He had not been able to vote. He made a mistake when he was 18 years old. And he was 78 years old up in that gallery of the state capitol. And I restored his rights, and he had just voted for the first time, folks, in 60 years. Is that not a great thing? That's why you run for governor. So it's important that we continue to do that. As you know, Virginia is among the 12 states with the most restrictive laws governing the restoration of voting and civil rights for individuals. It doesn't make any sense to me. We should never be at the bottom. We should always be the best about opening ourselves up. So what we have done, as you probably know, we reduced the waiting period for more serious offenders from 5 years to 3. We have now, which is very important, we reclassified all drug-related convictions now are non-violent. So you immediately can get your voting rights back, which really opened up for so many folks. We took the application page from 13 pages, which needed a notary, down to one simple page and got rid of the notary. You used to have to write the governor a nice, long, flowery letter why I should give you your rights back. I'm busy, folks. I don't need to be reading all these letters. We got rid of that requirement. You want your rights back, I'm going to go ahead and give you your rights back. And the one thing we did, you weren't able to get your rights back if you owed outstanding court fees, which to me, to be honest with you, was a remnant of the poll tax. Because once you get in the judicial system, by the time you get done with interest and court costs, it is so exorbitant, you'll never pay them up. We got rid of that. So no longer court fines a barrier to that. So we are moving ahead, and we will continue to move ahead in that regard. But the big issue I've focused on when I talk about jobs is this whole skill set. That's why the budget I just presented to the General Assembly, it is a very large budget. I remind you, when I became governor, I inherited one of the largest deficits in Virginia history, and 2 years later, we turned it into the largest surplus in Virginia history. So we're working together. So I have money to invest back in education. So I just put in our budget $1 billion in new spending. That is the highest level we've ever had for education. We got to get back in investing in education here in the Commonwealth. Since 2008, we have cut 5,000 positions in our K through 12. Think of that. Now, enrollment's gone up. Our tests have gotten harder. English language students have gone up dramatically, and at the same time, you're cutting all these teaching positions. Doesn't make any sense. So I just put $139 million of the billion I put back in. So we're giving back to the communities. You're going to get 2,500 new instructional staff that you can use in your classrooms, and I'm telling you, you figure out how to use it. I'm not going to tell you how to do it. You know what your students need best. So that's in the budget that I present. I put $50 million in for at-risk students to help them along to do what we need to do. So this budget is chock full of things to help our education system to grow and allow us to be competitive. I put money in. I'm a huge advocate of pre-K. I think every child in Virginia ought to have access to a pre-K education. Why is it that only the wealthiest and those in zip codes with a lot of money give their children access to a pre-K? Come on. Right from the start, you're picking winners and losers. It doesn't make any sense to me. There's not a kindergarten teacher who I have not met with that can't tell me within 2 to 3 days they know immediately if a child's had a pre-K education. So let's give everybody that opportunity. I want to thank the work of my wife, Dorothy, our First Lady. She has taken on the effort to make sure that every child in Virginia has access to a healthy breakfast when they go to school. We had, when I became governor, we had 300,000 children going to school in Virginia that did not have access to a breakfast. They don't get it at home, and if you don't give it to them in school, then guess what? You're expecting them to learn STEM courses and their stomach's growling. They can't learn. So already in the first year that she's done this program, now 100,000 new children have access to healthy meals, not only breakfast, but lunches. Summer school meals are now available through the Community Eligibility Program, which before we came in, we didn't apply for. This is federal money that pays 100%. Now we apply, and then the national average states are up 20%. We're up 139%. And now we have 244 school districts that now offer healthy breakfast paid for. 310 school districts applied. There was no money. That's why I've put another $2 million in the budget. So what I'm trying to do, begin early, pre-K, K through 12, every child gets a quality education. It is absolutely critical. If we want to help folks today be successful, we've got to do it through our education system. And it's important here, and that's why you're all here today. And I need your help. I need you to go up and lobby the General Assembly to continue to push along these initiatives that I've been talking about here today, because without a quality education, these young men, it's going to be a very difficult time. I'm trying to reform the juvenile justice system. Today, as you know, we have 2 gigantic correction facilities. I've visited both. I'm the first governor to visit either one of them, Bon Air and Beaumont. You go into these correction facilities, they are gigantic concrete structures that should house people on murder row. And yet, when you walk through it, there's 14, 15-year-old kids in there. So how is this helpful? How are we dealing with this child to make sure the rest of his life is not in terrible shape if already at 14 years old you have these kids in these horrible, gigantic concrete structures? We spend $186,000 per juvenile in these facilities. And guess what? 80% get rearrested in 3 years. Now, you tell me that's a good expenditure of money. It's not. So what we're trying to do is shut these 2 big facilities down and do smaller ones, one here in the Hampton Roads region, one in Richmond area, get a lot of them closer to families. But while they are in the juvenile facility, work with the community services to begin to give them an education, to give them those skill sets I just talked about, so that when they get out, they can go in and have a skill set and go right into the workforce. So I'm trying to reshape the juvenile justice system here. And guess what? We save $19 million a year doing it. It cost me $93 million to get rid of the old ones, to build the new smaller ones. So you can do the math pretty quickly. In 5 years, we've paid for it, and we've actually done the right thing by our children in the juvenile justice system. So I'm really trying to shake it up. I appreciate all the work you've done. So And we're making progress with our schools. Just last year, I just came out with results. The African American students had a 7% increase in math and a 6-point increase in reading. So we know it works. So I want all the educators in this audience to know, thank you. We are making great progress. There are school districts that need more help. We need teachers in certain areas. We should incentivize teachers to go to areas where there are challenged students, right? Get the best teachers. You want a science teacher there? Let's incentivize. Let's do what we have to do. Let's make sure that all of Virginia grows. We're the greatest state and the greatest nation on earth. I get out of bed every day. I'm fired up. I'm always fired up. But I'm telling you, folks, we can do this. We can be a leader. And the last thing, I'm trying to change high school in this state. High schools do not work the way they used to. They were built in the Industrial Revolution. Well, the jobs of the 21st century are no longer from the Industrial Revolution. They are big buildings with classroom with seats. We give credit for seat time. That does nothing to build a skill set for the 21st century. Take core courses earlier. Those later years, let them take college courses, community college courses. Let them get industry certifications. Let them go work in the workforce. Let's get skills while they're still in high school, because over the next 10 years, we'll create 1.5 million new jobs. And 65% of those jobs will require less than a 4-year degree. So let's get in the game here. So I'm trying to change our high schools, do what we need to do. So you're here, you're doing all the great work. I just want you to know our administration is your partner. We're going to give you the tools. We're going to build a sound education system, provide health care for everyone. I'm trying to get the Medicaid expansion done. We need that done. 400,000 Virginians, we've paid for it. We ought to bring that money back. Healthy living, education, that's what this is all about. And I want every young African male to understand this administration, we have got your back, and we are going to do everything we can with your help to make sure that they have a successful life. Thank you, and honored to be here today.
Waiting so long to say welcome to the urgency of now. Well, not really long, 60 days, but a very long 60 days. So thank you all for your time. We are going to do our best to get back on schedule, and we are absolutely thrilled to have the CEO of Cities United, Anthony Smith, here with us today. Came in last night and started this work and shared some wonderful news with us that in 2019, Hampton will host the national convening for the Cities United Conference. And so I'm going to briefly share a few directions with you for the day. When we go to our first breakout session after our panels this morning, all of the young people, and I'm going to put a late age limit on it because sometimes, you know, I feel like I could probably hang around myself. But the young people who have come from Hampton and other cities and those who are participating on that youth and young adult panel, we'll ask that you remain in this room so that we can start to have some dialogue, because we have asked our young people to be very candid, and they are going to tell us some things that we may not want to hear that we need to hear. And so we want to give them the opportunity and the space to do that, and so they are comfortable. But right now we're going to transition. I'm going to ask Anthony Smith if he would come up and give a brief introduction for Dr. William Bell, the CEO of Casey Family Programs.
So good morning, everybody. We are so excited to be with you all and looking forward to a real productive day of a lot of exchange. But you all know today is just a day. We've got to make sure this work goes way beyond today, and that we really put together a plan to make sure we create better outcomes for our young black men and boys. Thank you. And Cities United is really here to be a support and be helpful. And I really want to bring up Dr. Bell's bio is in your folder, so I'm not going to read through all of that. But Dr. Bell has really been the engine and mastermind behind Cities United, and really came up with this concept of saying, mayors, as the CEO of your communities, of your cities, what can you do to really start creating strategies to turn this tide and really put together a plan, and really saying we got your back as a Cities United, as a Casey Family Programs, to really come in and really help you do this work together. So I'm not going to read through the whole bio because I do know he's got to move on as well. He made time for us to be with us today. But I want to take this time to bring up Dr. William Bell, who has really been the mastermind and the engine behind Cities United. And I'm just blessed to be able to help live out his vision for this. So at this time, I want to bring up Dr. William Bell, Casey.
I want to say good morning. I hope nobody's offended by my attire. I want to also begin by saying thank you to Anthony for his leadership and for his willingness to join us in this conversation that we are having around the country about what matters to us. Because when you decide what matters to you, your behavior changes. We can speak, and yet things don't matter. We can stand in a crowd, and yet things don't matter. Because we can be the same while we're speaking, after we speak. But when something matters to you, your behavior changes. And that's why Cities United exists. Because we woke up one morning and said, something needs to matter in this country. Something needs to matter in Portsmouth. Something needs to matter in Newport News. Something needs to matter in Hampton. Something needs to matter in Chesapeake. Something needs to matter in Suffolk. Something needs to matter in Virginia Beach. And something needs to matter in Norfolk. And that something that we talked about was the lives of our young black men. And there are those who will look at me and say, well, why are you talking about black men, young black men? Why not all young men? Why do young black lives matter? Why not all lives matter? When, I just say, well, let's just do it by the numbers. When you go fishing, you go to the place where you believe the most fish are. When you go hunting, whatever you're hunting for, you go where you believe there's a large quantity of that thing that you're hunting for. When people are in need, we should also go where there's a large quantity of people in need. When I woke up this morning, I said, well, what am I going to say to these people that they don't already know? I can get up and spout off data about numbers, and you probably know those numbers. But there's one number that I think we should not forget, and that number is that from this time yesterday until right now, 29 young people in this nation have lost their lives. 4 of them to child abuse and neglect, violence. 13 of them to homicide, violence. But the most painful thing is that 12 young people since this time yesterday. When I say young people, I'm being clear. I'm talking about people under the age of 25, which, I just came on the other side of that number. But 12 young people from this time yesterday made a statement. They took their own lives. Because to them, one more day of life as they know it, as they knew it, was not an acceptable proposition. And so I'm thankful to the governor and to Mayor Wallace for your leadership and for the work that you're doing, and for the mayors of each of these communities that are cities that are represented here this morning. But it's time for us to raise our voices and to move beyond complacency. Because we have grown to believe that it is okay as long as mine is okay. That can no longer be the world that we live in. When something matters, our behavior changes. And I hope that you're here this day because something matters. Because black men and boys, young men, matter. You see, I have come to understand something in this country of plenty, this land of the free, the home of the brave. I've come to understand that when something matters to us, we move. When it's an election season, people gather in large crowds and they shout and they demand and they move and they show up, and then they go home. when it's a Super Bowl and dabbing don't work for you. People show up because that matters. But when young men are taking each other's lives because they don't believe they have any other choice, we remain silent. When someone raises a question as to why an unarmed young man should be killed by an armed civil servant, we say, well, you can't talk about that if you don't talk about the other. I believe that. I believe we have to talk about both. I believe we have to be willing to do something about both. But we need to understand something. When you succeed at completely dehumanizing an entire segment of our population, there are those who will come to believe that whatever happens to them, it is their own fault and they deserve what they get. Maybe you didn't hear me. When you succeed at completely dehumanizing an entire segment of our population, there are those who will come to believe that whatever happens to them, it is their own fault, and they deserve what they get. And when you get to that place, you can make an excuse that says when a 12-year-old gets shot down within 2 seconds of a civil servant arriving on the scene, where that 12-year-old has a gun in his hand or some form of a gun in his hand in an open carry state. And so while in that open carry state, it is not legal for someone under 18 to open carry. But if your excuse was, I thought he was a man, in an open carry state with a gun in his hand in a park by himself, where's the law that was broken? When you succeed in completely dehumanizing an entire segment of our population, there are some of us who will come to accept and believe that whatever happens to them is somehow their own fault, and they deserve what they get. I know you're behind schedule, so I'm going to be mindful of that, and I'm going to leave you with just a couple more thoughts. One is, it's amazing what we can learn from little children. They can fight this minute, and less than 5 minutes later, you're like, hold on. Didn't you just say you're not my friend anymore? Didn't you decide that what was done to you was so egregious that you couldn't stand the sight of that person? My 8-year-old tells my 6-year-old, can you just be quiet? I'm trying to read here. Go to another room. That's our sister. And the next thing I know, they're hugging each other. When do we learn to put aside our differences and find that thing that unites us so that all of our children can have hope? Because when we speak about the slaughter that has taken place in our communities across this nation at the hands of one young black man to another young black man, we cannot be complacent and say that that is just them. That is an act of hopelessness. I read someplace once that said, when you remove hope from the heart of a man or a woman, you render them a beast of prey. Let me translate that to the street vernacular in New York City and around this country. If you diss me, I'll kill you. Because the only thing I have left is my respect. I don't have anything else. I don't have an education. I don't have a pathway to a job. When I read that little bit that I can read, it tells me that my people will do worse than anybody else in this nation. I don't have anything but my respect, and if you try to take that from me, I will kill you, because I don't have hope. The greatest challenge facing this nation today is hopelessness. And so when you talk about the urgency of now, over the remainder of this day, over the remainder of your time on this earth, because I hope you will continue to focus on this urgency of now, call it the relentless urgency of now, because that is something else that we learn from kids. How many of you got children, young children? How many of you ever made them a promise that you wish the words never came out of your mouth? Is it now? Is it now? Are you going to do it? I know you're tired and you've been out here, but you told me this morning before you left that when you came home, I know you're cooking and I'm hungry, but is it now? You see, I spell now differently than you do. Most of you spell it N-O-W. Well, I spell it N-O-W-W. And N-O-W-W now means no obstacle will work. There is nothing you can put in front of me that will cause me to stop. And if you have a 6-year-old or 8-year-old or someone in that category that you made a promise to, there is nothing you can say to them. You know I'm tired. You look at my eyes. Look, you said you were going to do it. Our children are waiting for us to become relentless in our now, because they're screaming out to us by their behavior. I need something more than I have. And right now, all I have is my respect. And that's slowly slipping away from me. And for some of them, it's already gone, and so they take their own life. When something matters to you, your behavior changes. Dr. King gathered the folks together after they made the long march from Selma to Montgomery, fighting for Voting Rights Act. And he asked the question, how long? And he answered, not long. How long will we continue to suffer? How long will we continue to watch our children take their lives, take each other's lives? How long before it begins to matter? He said it won't be long, because the truth, when it is crushed down to earth, will rise again. How long? How long before it matters? He said it matters because, and it won't be long, because what we sow, the same we shall also reap. When are we going to start sowing seeds of hope? Real hope. Not this false hope that one day, because one day hasn't come yet. When something really matters, our behavior changes. And now means no obstacle will work. God bless you.
This idea that black men and boys are assets to our community, that the more that we invest in them, the value that we place in them, we actually will transform and see the differences in the lives of not just our young black men, but in all our community, that they are important to the value. We're talking about being a prosperous society. We cannot prosper if any segment of our society is not prospering as a whole. And so when we talk about those things, I'm very excited to see how we use the power of narrative, how we talk about the power of changing stories, how do we use our personal stories. I know here, and I'll switch over to Anthony after this point, when we looked at the promise of place and we looked at the promise of focus, I grew up in Virginia, so I know what the challenges are. I know what it feels like to be a black male in Virginia and wasn't sure if I was going to get out and thinking about where am I going to go. But one thing that the governor said, and he ran off a lot list of good things. I'm thinking I might have to go back to Governor Cuomo up in New York and ask him what he's doing, because I might move back to VA, is the fact that with all the programs, all the things that are happening, if we don't have a sense of hope, if we don't have young men who believe they actually have a future, then none of it's going to matter. So part of the work we're going to have to do is, to Dr. Bell's point, is a sense of change within ourselves, within our community. But I know Virginia, the last thing is that I know Virginia has historically nailed it on the head every time. The first African-American governor of this country. The first governor that I've heard actually make a declaration for black men and boys this morning. You are the first. We have always led as Virginians. So my sense and my idea is that when you look at this report, you look at the sense of promise in this room, you shine your light, we shine our light, we look at Charlottesville that's leading, that's one of the cities scored. Virginia has all the mechanisms for the success that we're looking for, and I'm just excited to see how we can build upon that today. Thank you.
I'm just going to add a couple of things to what Rashid said. For me, again, Anthony Smith, I'm the executive director of Cities United, just took over leadership in November. And we were talking about how do we host a national convening every year, but we're like, how do we start doing some regional work, right? Because the work really happens at the city level and at the regional level. And we were on conversation with Sanithia 1 and 2. Started really talking about, can we do the first one in Hampton? And then for you all to do this for us, the first one is the model for it. So, Rashid's point, you guys are setting the tone for how Cities United move with our regional division. So one, we want to thank you all for that. But when you think about this work and how we do it, and sometimes feeling like you're in silos, not just in your city, but sometimes in your states, these kind of gatherings and going around and working with all the different initiatives, for us is very important, right? Because sometimes when you knock on the city's door and say we want to be helpful, cities got to assess what that looks like and what that means, because there's so many people saying they got the answer for you, they're going to be helpful. So we want to really come in and try to help align that. But what these networks do for you is help you get support. And one of the things that always is the best thing for me when we go to conveners is to see the young men in the rooms helping us solve the problem, right? Helping us look at the issue and think about it. And then my last point around, this work really is, to the next question comes, is when we look at our data, everybody's talked about data since they got up, right? One of the things, I used to work for Mayor Fisher in Louisville. When I first started, everybody was giving me all the data that makes you want to go cry, right? The stuff that makes you want to go in the back room and be hopeless and say we can't fix it. So I started asking for the other stuff. So when I talk to the school system, don't just tell me how many young black men dropped out. Tell me how many walked across the stage and got into college so that we can have this dual conversation, because all of our young black men are not experiencing this kind of events. But we want to make sure that we're having this full conversation and that we can talk about our young black men holistically and counter the narrative that we hear on the TV and hear in the news, and we want to continue to just build this up. So I want to make sure that you all start looking at all of your data. I got a friend who runs the Urban League in Louisville. She calls that kind of data dignity data. Really looking at how do we show the dignity of our young black men? How do we show the pride, the resilience that Dr. Bell talked about, and really saying, we can fix this issue. We can really solve this problem by looking within, right? If you look at a block, just go to a block in your neighborhood. There's some kids who are not succeeding, but there's some who are. How do you help them? How do you look at the ones who are succeeding and seeing what they're getting, and then also give that to the ones who are not succeeding? So just constantly looking at your data in different ways and sharing it in different ways. And with social media, I'm so hyped about the young folks who are helping push this. Are you on? Hashtag, so if you're not on Twitter, I'm just saying, if you're not on Twitter and you're not on Instagram, please get on there and use this hashtag, because they really want to make sure that they're pushing this out. And that really helps push the conversation across the country too, as people are looking for what you all are doing here to say, how do we do that again? So I just want to, thank you all. These networks just help you move forward, and sometimes being able to pick up the phone and call Rashid or Eric or anybody in this room and say, look, I'm dealing with this issue, can you help me talk about it? That's very helpful when you talk about national networks.
And so, Anthony, you kind of pivoted to where I want to go with the conversation next. Is so both Anthony and I led the work in our respective cities for Black male engagement. I was formerly the director of Black male engagement for the city of Philadelphia. Anthony was the director of safe and healthy neighborhoods in Louisville, Kentucky. There are a lot of lessons learned. Being one of the first directors of Black male engagement for a major city, being one of the first women, being a woman that presents young, there were a lot of obstacles that I had to face to get the work done for brothers that look like me. And so I got a lot of kind of lesson learned and practical applications of things that can move the work further. When you're talking about building from the ground up is where you all are now. But Anthony, can you talk about some of your experiences or give some practical examples of kind of building from the ground up of when you started the position in Louisville 2 years ago, 3 years ago? Yeah, 3 years ago, what that looked like and what you were able to accomplish in that time.
So the office that I ran for Mayor Fisher was actually a newly created office. We had never had it before in Louisville. And it was one where the mayor gave me really clear vision and clear charge to say, we need to break down the silos within inside government and outside government so that we can solve this issue. And looking at it as a root cause and putting together a long-term systematic plan. He knew that this was not going to be a big overnight event. So what we did is we really looked at the historical data. Who are we losing to homicides? Who are the young people consistently dying? What neighborhoods are they coming from? What communities are they living in so that we can really focus our efforts? But it was really around making sure that everybody inside the government understood the importance of what we were doing. Right? So this was not just the mayor's thing that he talked about. He made sure the chief of police, director of public health, our director of our jail, the director of our youth detention center, everybody in his administration understood that we were having a new day and that we were going to change the system and the way we did things. So we were really looking at this as a holistic approach. So for me, it was, one, I knew that we had to put together a plan that was going to sustain Mayor Fisher, it was going to sustain me, it was going to be something that lived on that the city as a whole took on. So that means we had to make sure that we had community buy-in and community support. So it was consistently making sure community members were at the table helping us figure this out. But one thing you don't want to do, those of you all are here and working for government, is make it seem like this is your issue to solve, right? This is a community issue that we all need to be a part of. But as soon as it doesn't go right, you guys are going to be the only ones held accountable. But this is about all of us working together in partnership to make this thing different.